If you have ever wondered if you can build a multi-million dollar business starting out with $100, then today's episode of the Author to Authority podcast is for you. Welcome to the show today. I'm so happy to have Matt Shoup. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Yay! And we're going to be talking about his story of how he was laid off. I'm not going to give you the whole story, but from being laid off, he built a business to over $30 million. So we're going to talk about that story today. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Kim, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
So normally I'd ask like a really obvious question, like, is it possible to grow a multi-million dollar business? But I kind of already answered that because I said you did.
It is. You've just got to do it one day, one step, one action, one customer at a time.
I love it. So Matt, why don't you share a bit of your story with us and, what happened and what led you to starting your company that, just grew to such amazing success?
Yeah, no, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do so. So growing up, I grew up in New Jersey till I was 10, and then my family and I moved out to northern Colorado. And I was always kind of a troublemaker as a kid, so I didn't like following rules. I couldn't sit down. I was always labeled as ADD, and but I was also really smart, so I would get through school and especially math and numbers pretty well. But then I'd end up in the principal's office because they didn't keep me busy with enough stuff to do. So like we moved, and I really vividly remember that summer between turning 9 and 10, so fourth and fifth grade. This is when compact discs CDs were out,
Mm-hmm.
and all my new friends in the neighborhood, their parents bought them a boom box from Radio Shack. So I'm like, hey, mom, dad, buy me a
Radio
boom box.
Shack, loved Radio
Yeah,
Shack.
remember Radio Shack? Are they still around? Like, are they still around? Are they?
Not in Canada.
No.
It's
Okay.
called The
I don't
Source
think I've
now.
seen one. Okay. Yeah, it's called Vacant Building. But yeah, I came to my parents and I said, hey, will you guys give me a couple $100? They said, no, we're not going to do that. You make $4 a week cutting the grass. So go cut more of our grass or find a way to make money. And I was like, hold on a minute. I can go cut other people's grass. So I took the lawnmower, knocked on doors. And that was, a very critical moment in my life. I'm like, hold on, you can go knock a door, ask for something, set a goal, do hard work, and get paid for it. So I just did that over and over and over again. And that bought the boom box. It then led to doing snow shoveling. And then I peddled candy out of my locker. So again, like that was my growing up.
I
And at
love
a
that
base
pedal candy out of
level,
your
I
locker.
would have been a drug dealer. Yeah. I'm like, give me the Reese's, give me the, so we had, kids come to the locker. I actually got in trouble for that though. So the school suspended me because I was competing with the school store without asking for permission. It somehow was not in the handbook. I don't know, but I'm an entrepreneur. Like I'm a marketing, I'm a sales guy. I love people. I love the chase and the hustle, per se. So that led me into just working some hourly jobs. I was always working. I was getting through school as quick as I could so I could go work and make money. I think I developed kind of an unhealthy relationship with money because it gave me so much certainty and confidence in
Mm.
myself that I really built a lot of that confidence on that, which kind of plays out later in life. But I basically find myself in a college 8 a.m. biology class. I get recruited by a college painting company one morning. They came in, talked about a summer internship, and they're like, hey, what are you going to do this summer? Are you going to work at a shoe store? Are you going to deliver pizzas? And I'm like, yep, been there, done that, probably. What do you have going on? And they said, well, you can learn about marketing, sales, entrepreneurship. They're just checking off all the lights are going off, in my brain. And a couple months later, I'm working with them. So I worked through college learning about the painting business and made a bunch of money, spent way more than I made. And I said, this was a cool college gig. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm going to go find something else to do. And I jumped into the mortgage business back in 2004, 2005, and just absolutely
Mm.
hated it. Really didn't enjoy it. And I'm working at a bank. It's March 2005. Totally hate life, hate the job, being told what to do every day. And a new bank president, they bring this new guy in and he starts cleaning house. He's like firing everybody, pulls me in and he says, hey, go get all your stuff, put it in a box, get out, you're fired. And like that was standing in a parking lot. I had 6 figures of debt, $100 left to my name. I'm 24. 23 at the time, recently married, and like the world was in front of me. I could go do whatever I wanted, but I also needed to figure it out pretty quick because I'm supporting my new wife and had to figure it out. So that was the birth, that was the launch of M&D Painting.
Wow. I when you said you started in 2005, I was waiting to hear like 2008, 2009 recession hit and you lost your job. That's what I was waiting. That's what I thought you were going to say to me.
If I would have loved mortgage and stayed in mortgage, I'm sure that whole era would have hit pretty hard, because I think it did hit a lot of people there too. So I was actually glad I got out of it. And that recession for us, we were still on an upward growth
Mm.
trajectory in business. So I mean, we actually saw a lot of people staying in their homes, and it didn't affect us as it did affect some other people, which was a great thing.
So, what made you decide to start the painting company and talk about those first couple of years?
Yeah. I would say, I would lie, right, and say a real sexy story of like, I just dreamed of being this, painter, and I didn't. It's all I knew how to do, right? And I was really upset. I was really angry. I got fired by this dude in a tie, and I'm like, I'm gonna go prove him wrong. I'm gonna become a millionaire. Because right after he fired me, he's like, maybe you should go do that painting thing, and he kind of cinched up the tie. He was real condescending, and I mean, I literally am standing in that parking lot, and all I know how to do from growing up is knock on doors, to cut grass, shovel snow, and I'm not going to cut grass. There's no snow. Not going to peddle candy. And I just had been done with 4 years of painting, and I'm like, you know what? At first, Kim, it was just going to hold us over. I came home and I told Emily, hey, I got let go. She was very supportive. She said, hey, what are we going to do? I told her what we're going to do, and then I went out. But I thought we would, for 9-10 months, just through that season, make some money to just float by, and
Yeah.
then figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then we got to the end of that year, and we raked in like a 500,000 worth of top line in business, which was a great top line. It was very profitable. And I said to Emily, I'm like, hey babe, let's take this thing, let's keep it going, and let's get it growing. And it was really at that point, it was after we made it through a season, because I just started driving forward. I didn't really look back. And I said, we can actually build a business here.
Mm. So, y you reached a level that most people barely ever reach in their business. How did you manage to do that in such a short space of time? Like, what was your sales process like?
Yeah, I tell people that I had 4 years of JV experience, right? Like my son right now, he's playing JV football, getting ready for varsity, and I just didn't drop into this painting business not knowing anything. I had 4 years of understanding sales, converting prospects, things like that. And the college painting model was very much knock on doors and turn it into business. So, my sales model was very regimented, very trackable. I knew how to knock on doors, and I knew if I knocked on doors for this much time at this time of day, I would get a certain number of estimates. I knew how to convert those. So it really was just like, hey, we can do a $500,000 of business. And I worked backwards. So a big takeaway for business owners, wherever they're at, is you need to have a marketing method that
Mm.
works, that gets you in front of clients, and then in front of those clients, they turn into clients, and it's ratios and it's numbers. And a lot of times businesses stop short. They don't do things enough. They just
Yeah.
go, oh, I tried this 14 times and it didn't work, and then they stop. I'm like, no, go try it like 200 times, 300 times, and then see.
It's funny, I was in network marketing for quite a few years because it was a good
Hmm.
thing to do when the kids were little,
Yeah.
and, man, I really was not good at it, but I had this entrepreneurial heart, and I didn't even realize as a kid that I had an entrepreneurial heart. I knew I always had a teaching heart, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize there was also an entrepreneur sitting in there as well.
Yeah.
But I remember I finally joined my last network marketing company, and it was such a blessing because this company had district managers, so
Hmm.
local managers, and their job was to teach anyone who wanted to learn how to sell and recruit. So for 2 years, I mean, that's all I'd ever been asking for. Every company I went in, I was just asking, "Will you teach me how to do this? Like, I'm teachable. Tell me to do something, I will
Right.
do it. As
Tell
long
me
as
what to
it's
do.
morally and ethically and legally okay, I will do it. Right?
Yeah.
And so I spent 2 years with this manager sitting basically on her hip, and I learned how to do everything that she did. But one thing she taught me was to track my numbers if I wanted
Yeah.
to reach a certain goal. So, like you, I knocked on doors.
Yeah.
I knocked on doors all the time. And I learned how to knock on doors. I learned how to talk to people, and I learned how to track my numbers. And so I
Yeah.
knew how many doors I needed to knock on to get a customer, and I knew how many doors I needed to knock on to get a recruit. Now, eventually, I started doing malls and shows and that, I mean, that expanded it quite a bit. But I started out, and was successful knocking on doors.
Yeah. And I always tell people there's something about door knocking, whether that's, residential or even B2B, right? Business to business. There's just something about that that builds some grit. Yeah.
Let me tell you, no becomes your friend, and you better learn to accept it, and you better
Yeah.
learn to keep a smile on your face, because sometimes you're interrupting people in
Yeah.
not good situations. I remember one time I knocked on this door, and a gentleman answered, and I just asked if the lady of the house was home, and he said no, and then I could hear her in the background, and so he's like, this is not a good time. And I mean, you could feel the tension coming out of the house, like you could cut it with a knife. And in the background, she's like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm thinking,
Like, I'm
I'm
gonna leave
thinking,
now.
I'm like, maybe I'll just come back another day. Thank you very much. Bye
Yep.
now.
Yep.
I
Yeah, I've had interesting experiences. I mean, I've had guns not pointed at me, but pulled out, shown to me. Dogs, definitely chased by dogs, bit by a couple dogs. Yeah, and you just get the craziest thing said. But I've also had people on the flip side invite me in for dinner and for coffee, and I've made some really great friends. I mean, some I just spoke to a lady. Her name's Cindy. One of the first doors I ever knocked on, and she's like, "I hired you because you reminded me of my husband when he was young, and he was out starting a roofing company." So yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, and then there's just everything in between.
And one thing I love about your story, Matt, is the fact that sometimes people think that the only way you can sell these days is online, social
Yeah.
media, all that kind of stuff. And it's not true. There are so many offline ways that you can sell. And I mean, depending your business, I mean, I'm a publisher. Knocking on doors is not going to, you know, but many times in business, maybe you can knock on doors.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, especially this was back in 2005, right before a lot of social media and the internet and everything really started taking off. But I mean, even now, with like if I was to restart everything over tomorrow, I would still build a social media presence, right? But I would go
Yeah.
knock on doors. I mean, that is the quickest way to get in front of somebody in the residential space that needs work done. And I feel like we're so accustomed to going online and being sold online, and even though it's right there on your computer screen, it's not the actual person right there. So it's kind of refreshing to have that human contact and a handshake and a, hey, can we just sit down? So no, I would encourage every and any business owner to do that for sure.
Yeah, definitely think out of the box.
Yeah.
Matt, we're gonna continue on here, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. Audience, RTI Publishing has some free resources for you, so take a listen. I promise, no longer than 17 seconds. Welcome back, Matt. I love that. I loved your story. Let's continue it here. So, you had that first period of time, you had that success. What happened after that?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I've always loved the marketing and the sales. People laugh at me, but I've never been good at painting. I have a really great friend. He was actually just on our podcast, and he was working for me as an independent contractor, here, small jobs here and there. And he goes, I always hated you, man. I wanted to smack you around because you never knew how to paint. And we're still friends. He's like, I don't know how we're still friends today, but that was easy for me to let go of just because I was never good at it. So when you get to this point in the business, you're a solopreneur, right? So it's just you're doing everything and you can only do so much. You're really
Yeah.
limited. You're just exchanging your time for money. Hopefully it's more money than what you were making at your other job. Hopefully you're enjoying it more. But I had to quickly get away from the things I didn't like. So painting I never did, which was great. But that next step for me to take that business from that,
Mm.
say, $500,000 to $1 million level is I knew I could sell that if I did not have to be out on the job sites managing. So I pulled in a project manager. And then from there, I the hardest thing for me was pulling in another salesperson because like it's sales is my baby. M&E, it's Matt and Emily, like it's our name, it's our family, our kids, our family's young and growing at that point. So they're on all the ads and all the PR and everything that we're doing. So eventually, though, to step out to that true leadership position, you have to hire people that you can train and that you trust and that can execute better on, the things even that are your giftings. And it was just a slow progress for me there. And again, it's easier to let go of the things you don't like doing, like bookkeeping, accounting, all the office work. Emily started to help with that. We eventually brought somebody else in. But yeah, it's a slow process. And I think getting from that level of being self-employed
Mm.
solopreneur to being a business owner where you're really counting on training, inspiring, leading other people, you have to get out of their way. You have to have a level of trust.
Yeah.
You have to give them things to do that they can execute on. You need to be there to help them, but you also don't want to be hovering over their shoulder,
Mm.
disempowering them.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is you're right. You have to find the right people because you have to trust these people. You know,
Yes.
um, it's funny. Like whenever I have to, when I've hired a book project manager, it's a very carefully chosen person because first of all, not they're dealing with my very high end, very high class clients, so
Yeah.
she's got to be able to deal with them properly. And it's always been a she, not
Hmm.
just turned out they've always been she's, but uh, not opposed to a male one. But the thing was that with the way the business is set up, this person has access to some of my very important financial information.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yes, this person, and they admin a lot of my stuff. So
Hmm.
if it's not the right person, they could shut me down very easily.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I've had people, we had a gentleman here back in 2014 and 15 that embezzled $50,000 from us. That
Mm.
wasn't a great year. Yeah. And there was some things there. Again, I've and it's the flip side, right? You always share that, like getting bit by the dog, but then hey, I'm in having dinner with a wonderful family. We had that employee that did that. But I mean, I also have a gentleman who's been here with the company for 15, 16 years. He came, right in, right as we were
Mm.
starting. He's our right hand man. I'm the visionary. He's the integrator, implementer, and just great guy, great guy.
Yeah. I think the one thing I've learned, especially about hearing a lot of these stories, is even when you hire these people, you can't fully take your hands off. I think there still has to be checks and balances, and
Mhm.
you have to be. I mean, ultimately, it's your company, so you're
Yes,
responsible for what happens, right? So I think
yes.
it's a matter of teaching, training, but also having accountability.
Yeah. Yeah, you've gotta, you have to give them the role, the specifics, the details, hold them accountable to that. And if they're not meeting that, you've got to correct them. You've got to get them back up to speed on the same page. And sometimes you've got to let somebody go if it
Yeah.
isn't working out. But then and I've gotten to the point to the business too because I own some other companies where I've stepped out of the day to day, and sometimes I'd say I'd even stepped out a little bit too much. So there's nothing ever that's totally passive that you can totally step out of. Like you have to be present and there
Mhm.
and doing things that are going to drive the business forward.
So if you were talking to a solopreneur right now, maybe someone who hasn't even made their first 100,000,
Mhm.
What advice would you give them?
Is just keep pushing forward. I think, especially in this age of social media, and we'll talk a little bit about the book and how that ties in. But it's you. Just think about this. You scroll through, and I know you guys are all scrolling. Don't tell me you're not, right? But you're in there on TikTok or Instagram, and everything that pops up just seems to be how, oh, I own $100 million worth of real estate, and I bought it with everybody else's money, right? It just seems like in a 40-second reel, this whole guy's 20-year career is posted in front of you, and then they're trying to sell you a product, so you start to feel bad like your business isn't there enough. We just live in this microwave society where a lot of people are painting this picture of perfection and success that you don't realize took a long time. I'm 20 years into this business.
Yeah.
And we're actually facing some struggles and challenges in our business right now with increasing costs and declining margins and things like that. So it's like it's not always the road to success is it's not always like this, right? Or I'm going this way. Hold on, which way am I on the screen? But it's one of
Up,
these,
down,
and
left,
it's
right,
all
in.
around. So just again, remember why you're doing the business you're doing. Remember why you're getting up every day and why you're doing this. That's so important. If you lose track of that when it gets hard, I see a lot of people quit. So remember the why, and find and search out other people, mentors, coaches that have been where you want to be, and they can help. Sometimes it's just hard to get out of your own way and get out
Yeah.
of yourself, right? So just having people that can call you out, say, you just need to do this, or stop doing this, or start doing this, whatever that is, and just appreciate the small wins. I think
Mhm.
as I've been discouraged as a business owner, I'll be harder on myself many times than a lot of people are ever hard on me. Somebody can say something about me, I'll brush it off, right? But then I'll go sit in my closet and like beat myself up and cry for 30 minutes about something. Like you can sometimes be your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
But your brain cannot process appreciation, gratitude, love, thankfulness at the same time that you have anxiety, fear, scarcity. So it's what you focus on. Like they literally happen in the same place in the brain. So making sure that you're starting your day and continuing your day with just
Mhm.
constant appreciation and thankfulness and gratitude for where you're at. Um, and it just takes time. Like anything good takes a decade.
Love it. Yeah, I'm 8 years in, so,
And
this year has been such a year of transformation
yeah,
in the business, and, it's funny, I came out of 2019, to be honest, I had nothing left. Like, it had been a really bad year, not only for me, but for some of my major employees, um, just just so much, and came to December, I had to run the business and I couldn't sell because I was trying to keep, and came down to December, I had just enough money to pay my employees and give them a small Christmas bonus, and there was nothing left in the bank account.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
had no business coming in either.
yeah.
Like I had nothing.
Been there, been there. Yeah.
Now, thankfully, my husband had a job, so we weren't going to be living out on the streets. But I came into 2020, and it was really funny. I hit about November, beginning of December. I mean, I knew things were bad, and I was just like, I'm like, God, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Hmm.
And he just kept saying to me, Kim, just have hope. 2020 is going to be
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, that's going to be my word of the year is hope, right?
yeah.
Came into 2020. I knew for me that I had about a 90-day sales cycle. So, if I
Hmm.
started lead gen in January, I'd start to see some results in March. Okay,
Yes.
that's fine. Hit the grindstone, took a break over Christmas, joined my family, just
Hmm.
put everything away, hit the grindstone beginning of January. March 2020 hits.
Yes.
Now, for most people, it was disastrous. But for me, every person whose excuse had been that they didn't have the time, guess what?
Hmm.
They now had the time.
Yeah.
So I went from almost nothing. I mean, I think I'd gotten like maybe one or two sales in there, just enough to keep some money flowing in. But all of a sudden in March, April, my phone is ringing off the hook. Like I've got people messaging me every day. Kim, I know we had talked about doing a book, but and I didn't have the time, but now so for me it was almost the complete opposite to what everybody else was going through. But I could relate because back at December 2019, I'm going, do I even keep this thing open?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to shift gears here, Matt, because we're running out of time, and I do want to talk about your book. I'm just
Can
so enjoying today's
can I
conversation.
can I just add one thing because you touched on
Sure.
it, and I'll take 60 seconds, no more. But you mentioned you talk to God, right? So anybody that's listening to this, if they're a believer and they follow God, I follow Jesus. There's sometimes in business where like just on paper the P&L, the X's and O's, it doesn't make sense, and you're putting everything on your shoulders, right? So maybe you're in a struggle, maybe you're having some success, you're trying to get it to that next level. I did poorly at this for a long time, and this has been, part of my faith journey. Is you have to rely on God. if, if
Yes.
if you if you don't believe in God, then don't believe in God, and then rely on yourself. But you can only do so much. You only have so much time, energy, resources, mental health. Okay, if you're a believer, you believe in God, you have to give certain things up. You've got to open the hands and just say, I've done all I can do. And you've got to pray and you've got to ask God for provision and for those things to come. Doesn't mean sit on your butt and don't do anything. Don't be lazy and think God's going to rain all this business on you. But a lot of times, believers, we don't bridge that gap enough. And we say we believe, but then when it comes down to it, we take and put everything on ourselves. So just want to give that as an encouragement, in your prayers and your walk. Make sure that you're really focusing on
Well, we forget to ask God to put His super on our natural.
that. Yes, I love that.
Oh, Matt, let's shift gears here. I love what you just said.
Thanks.
Fully agree. God owns this business, and so there's times He just tells me to do things that don't make any sense, but I choose to follow Him every day, and I have not regretted it one day of my life.
Me either. Yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to talk about your book, though. So
Mhm.
Matt, tell us, what's the title of your book? What's it about? Who did you write it for?
Yeah, the book title is Painted Baby, and the subtitle is Connect with Clients Through Brave and Vulnerable Storytelling.
Love
And
it.
I touched a little bit on the whole social media culture, right? Of you everywhere
Mm.
you go, marketing, advertising, messaging, right? They hook you and then they paint this picture of perfection and show you some simple process on how to get there, right? Because they're trying to sell something to you. I sold like that for a really long time. So I was always out there crushing and closing deals with A+ 5-star shiny marketing brochure, best of the best. And I was in a really big sales appointment about to close the biggest contract of our painting career. This was in 2011. And I'm given all the different, closing techniques and all the great reviews. And the customer's like, hold on a minute. He goes, tell me about a time you screwed up. Like, you're giving me all these A+ reviews. I want to know about a time that you messed something up. And I was like, wait, we're not supposed to do that. We're not trained. We're not conditioned. We don't live in a society where you lead or you interject any imperfection, right? That would make you vulnerable. People would judge you. People would not do business with you. But I said, that's what he asked for. And I really wanted to close this deal. So I'm like, okay, we painted the wrong color on a house once. And like, that's not a big deal. So he kind of called BS on that. And I said, well, we painted the right color, but we painted it on the wrong house once. We actually went to a house. We got the addresses confused. We weren't supposed to be painting it. And he kind of did what you just did. And then he leaned in, he wanted to know more. But it hooked him. And then he still wouldn't sign the contract. And he goes, I really want to know about a time that you had a massive failure and what you did about it. I said, well, fine. We painted a baby. We're on a job site getting ready to spray a garage door. It's semi-gloss black paint. Homeowner is standing behind my painter holding her 9-month-old baby. And right when he goes to pull the trigger, there was just this one in a million kind of jam. The sprayer jammed up at the right place, right time. Boom, explodes black paint all over the painter, the house, the landscape, the concrete, the mom, the baby. So we painted a baby. Like, that's a really, really bad day at the office on the job site. But I'm telling this story in this sales engagement, and he's hooked. He wants to know what happens. There's this drama, there's this plight that I'm going through. This just, you think of any reality TV, right? Anything you watch, there's the storyline, and then this
Yeah.
character gets into
Yeah.
this moment of, oh my gosh, what happened? So we told him what happened. We told him how we addressed it, how we triaged the situation. Baby's okay. Everybody is okay. All the people are okay. Made a huge mess, cost a lot of time and money to clean up, but we made it right. So the point of that is I was able to show really what we were made of as a company when something was on the line. Like, you say you have integrity, but if your integrity is never questioned, how do you prove it? So the guy Bill, he reaches across the table, shakes my hand. You're the kind of guy I want to do business with, and that's what I was looking for. So I realized, hey, show all the great stuff, but there's also the reality of your business of, like, we're humans serving humans. We don't always get it right. We're going to be imperfect. And in that imperfection, you can show who you're made of. And I went on this journey literally since this happened. It took me 7 years to write the book. I initially wrote it as a, hey, if you share business horror story, you'll close more business. Here's how to get more sales. But I really found throughout this process that it's more about human connection and building trust and showing a business owner that, hey, you're a leader, you're running a business, you need to go first and be vulnerable in the stories you share, and that will connect you with people deeper, and that's what
Yeah.
sells more business for you. And I'll grab the book really quick because it's my daughter's on the cover here, and she gets a small royalty for every book that I sell. But it's an amazing book. I interviewed other business owners, business leaders that have gone through a lot of adversity. They've shared their painted baby stories in the book, and I create a process of how you can interject this right into your sales and customer relations process.
Love it, Matt. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question that I ask every author that comes on the show. So, what was the good, the bad, and the ugly about writing, editing, and publishing that book?
The good, I feel like everybody has a book that they should write, whether it's like their autobiography, their story, just the idea of taking a story and sharing it, and it can connect with other people and teach them something valuable. I think, like any book, we get so tied up on book sales and all this stuff, right? Like, this brings value to people's lives more so than I thought. Uh, a lot of Christian businessmen are attracted to me and my story. So that's kind of a sub niche of just overall business owners and leaders that I serve. And they're like, Matt, this is great. It helps me with sales, but this book really helped me get vulnerable about some stuff that I'm going through in my relationships. So this book really transcended business for me, and I thought that was amazing. The bad, it's funny, like, I started it in 2015, and sometimes I go, I should have finished this sooner. I don't think that's bad. I think it was a better book
Mm.
because of it. I got to think back about, like, bad and ugly per se, because I think I'm a very glasses half full person. One thing I'll say, anybody that's going to write a book, though, and you will go through this, and maybe this is the ugly or just something to really know that you're going to face, is I would write something, right, and then I'm proofing it, and I'm like, what is this garbage that I just wrote? I don't know if you have this or your clients have this. You're like, did I write this? And you'll be
Because it
you'll
sounds
be
so good in your brain.
and maybe it's still good, but it is this emotional roller
Yeah.
coaster, because, like, you're opening up your soul, and maybe you're writing more of an informative, it's process and it doesn't have story, but, like, this was a very personal book for me. But I think just for any author, you're going to get to points where you're like, that part's awesome, chapter 2 killed it, and then you roll in the same 5 minutes, you're in chapter 3, like, what? Like, what is this? And it's just an emotional process, right?
Yeah.
So go through that process, understand it may take longer than you take,
Mhm.
or longer than you think it's going to take, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
um but yeah, again, I wouldn't say that there was anything bad bad about it.
I like your outlook. The funny thing is, Matt, in every client I've worked with, my own books, like you said, there's the chapter that you love. But
Hmm.
there's also going to be the chapter that you hate, and no matter how much you work
Yeah.
on that thing, you just cannot get it quite the way you want it to. And I think you just have to get to
Yeah.
the point where you
Yeah.
accept it. You just accept it. Okay, this is not my best chapter, but it needs to be here for the book to make sense. And I'm just going to let this thing go.
Well, and there's certain parts of the book too, I would say, just like certain parts of the book where, hey, this is great, but it doesn't make sense here in this book at this time. So you'll sometimes, as you're writing a book, like you'll have a whole nother book that kind of comes out of that and gets
Oh yeah.
parked. I'd also say not everybody's going to love your
Every
book. Yeah.
every client I work with, we go through this.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I have 2 words for them. I just look at them because they're like, "Oh, maybe we need to add this." No. I look at them, I go, "Book 2."
Yes. Yeah.
And then they go, "But, book 2."
Book two. Book two. And then a
Matt,
couple of sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Matt, we are out of time. I
We
would
are.
love to continue this conversation. It's supposed to be about 30 minutes. I'll go to
We went
35
over. Okay. Okay. Well, thank
because
you.
I
Thanks for
think
giving me
you and
the
I could
extra.
probably just really go. But Matt, I would love for you to just take a moment, give a final thought, and let people know if you have anything free to give away or how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so a couple of big things is if you go to mattshoup.com, I have a free tools, free resources button, and you can jump on there. I'll send a bunch of leadership tools, a couple of chapters to both of my books and some workbooks. And then big thing I'm working on for next year is I am taking a group of faith-based fathers and their sons over to Spain to do a father-son hike on the Camino. So that's a big passion project that I've got coming up for next year. And yeah, you can get to know me and meet me on the website there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. If you have enjoyed today's episode, I highly recommend that you scan back to episode 438, How to Rebuild Your Business When Life Throws You Curveballs, with my dear friend Mia Tor. If you've listened to this and you're like, oh yeah, I'm there. I'm there. That it's a wonderful episode. If you're on YouTube, you will see the thumbnail somewhere here on the screen because I never know where it gets put because it's my daughter who does it. And I think she changes it every once in a while. And if you're on your podcast app, just scan on back episode 438. Thank you so much for listening today. You are a blessing to me and my guests. Have a great day, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.